And joining me now in the studio, fresh from his dress to Parliament, is the Treasurer Wayne Swan. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Now, last year you forecast a $22 billion budget deficit, and then you delivered a $44 billion budget deficit in this financial year. How are we expect that you will hit a $1.5 billion target next year?
Well, let's just go through it. I mean, this is on the back of massive revenue write-downs. I mean, revenue's down $150 billion over 5 years, $6 billion in 11-12, $6 billion in 12-13. These are massive numbers, and they've had a very big hit on the budget. And what happened last year, we ought to just have a bit of a talk about that for a moment. We had the biggest natural disaster in our history when we brought the budget down. It turned out that the impact was greater than we thought. And secondly, then in the last quarter of last year, we had a resurgence of instability in Europe, which flooded global markets with pessimism, impacted on global growth, impacted on our economy. All of these things have led to a very big reduction in revenue. So coming back to surplus is in the face of all of those headwinds, and it indicates how serious the government is about its fiscal policy.
But who's to say what will happen in the next 12 months? There are a whole lot of unexpected events which led to a doubling in the deficit.
Well, there are unexpected events like the biggest natural disaster in our history, like the events in Japan, like the events in New Zealand. I can't say whether they're going to happen or not.
So how can you hit that surplus target?
We're going to hit that surplus because what we have done is put in place a very big savings task here, $33 billion, net savings $17 billion. We have actually found room to fund our priorities. But if you look at outlays as a proportion of the economy, our spending as a proportion of the economy, it is very flat, and we've got it down to 30-year lows. And ditto, because the tax take is so low, it's pretty low as well. So in that environment, coming back to surplus, making some very big saves, just demonstrates how seriously the government takes the fiscal task.
But haven't you painted yourself into an impossible corner? Because apart from the external problems that you might have, uncertainties that are out there, you have the uncertainty of Parliament now, with perhaps being picked off in Parliament, some of these budget measures by the opposition, by the Greens and by the Independents.
Let's just talk economics to begin with. I mean, we've got unemployment at 5.2%. We've got growth returning to trend. We've got a massive investment pipeline. We've got solid consumption, and we've got contained inflation. We take all that very seriously, and what it says to us is come back to surplus. Now, you come to the politics of it. I'm happy to talk about that. We've had good support for responsible economic policy from the crossbenchers over the past couple of years. We've had no support from the Liberal Party, who wants to put a wrecking ball through just about every sensible thing that we do in economic policy and runs around the place pretending that the global financial crisis never happened, the natural disasters never happened, and there isn't any instability in Europe.
Now, one of the ways that you are paying for the things that you want to do, the battleless bonuses that you are handing out, is to cut the company tax cut, which was a promise.
Well, we certainly committed to a company tax cut to start on the 1st of July 2013. The party of Menzies suddenly stood up and said no. Nobody could believe it. They've continued that opposition. And in fact, they proposed to increase the company rate. So the fact is that the Liberals are opposing it, and so too are the Greens. We can't get it through the Parliament. So I think we took the responsible decision, and I don't apologise for it, to spread the benefits of the boom out there to low and middle income earners.
Why don't you hand over the small business tax cuts, which the Greens would certainly support, which would give you the numbers in both houses?
Well, we've already got in there, funded by the mining tax, the instant asset write-off. That's more than $2 billion. We've just put another $700 million in terms of loss carryback. That is a massive package for small business, and we stand ready to talk to the business community about further reform when it comes to company tax.
Treasurer, you said the mining tax would spread the benefits of the boom. It's clearly not doing its job because you're having to find another way to spread the benefits of the boom.
Hang on a minute. It's only just starting. It's only just starting, and we've got a revenue stream.
And you change some of the central tenets before it started.
And what we're doing is enhancing what we're doing within the context of the Parliament that we have. But if you look at the instant asset write-off for up to 2.7 million small businesses, the loss carryback, they're very big initiatives. But why should Australians be denied the benefits of the boom because of the bloody mindedness of the Liberal Party in the Parliament, who haven't got the good sense to support business tax reform?
Among the things that you've done is move financing or move money from financial year to financial year. One of the things that you've done is moved $1 billion in local government grants from next year to this year. That's two-thirds of the surplus.
There's only one problem with what you've had to say there, Chris. We did it last year and we did it the year before. So to say that this is abnormal...
it does make a difference to the bottom line next year, doesn't it?
Well, it's made a difference to the bottom line all the way through. So that's just another one of the furphies that the Liberals are putting out there, because they haven't got the guts to bring a budget back to surplus. They've got a $70 billion hole in their budget bottom line. So they'll run round and nitpick with all this silly commentary, but it doesn't mean anything.
It does mean something. It means that you are moving finances from one year to the next.
And when they were in government, finances were moved. When they were in government, finances were moved every year, and it's been moved every year. So there's nothing abnormal about that. That's my point.
Now you say that the Reserve Bank will have more room to move because of this, because you're taking spending out of the economy. Yet before June, we'll see that $1.1 billion in local government spending moved into the budget, $3 billion in compensation for the carbon tax, and another $500 million for school kids' bonuses. That's $4.5 billion in spending before June. That's half of the first stimulus package. That's a lot of money, isn't it?
Well, we're not adding to price pressures in the economy, and what we've got now is an economy with a very big investment boom, and we've got contained inflation. This is one of the best places the Australian economy has been in a long period of time. We, unlike the previous government, when there was an investment boom on, are not adding to price pressures in the economy, and we're not adding to price pressures in the economy by coming back to surplus. That sends a very clear signal to markets, a very clear signal in terms of community expectations that we take our savings task very seriously.
If you are taking as much money out of the economy as you say, why won't that affect unemployment? And I noticed that the unemployment rate is rising to 5.5%.
It's going to tick up a bit. Yeah, well, there's 2 points.
Are you responsible for that?
Well, there's 2 points about that. It was upgraded actually in the mid-year update in November last year, so there's absolutely nothing.
You've been on this process for surplus for a while.
No, but the fact is that we do live in a patchwork economy, and whilst we have growth returning to trend, it is absolutely the case that there are parts of the economy which are soft, and there are sectors of the economy which are doing it tough because of the cautious consumer, because of the impact of the dollar. So naturally, there will be some fallout in terms of job losses in some sectors of the economy, but we're also creating them elsewhere as well.
The central tenet of this budget is to try and redistribute wealth down to the lower end of the economy. Are you buying votes?
Well, no, what we're doing is spreading opportunity. I want a society in which we have a broad middle class where it isn't dominated by a few wealthy and powerful groups in the society or in the economy. That's my objective. It's a classic objective that people who used to be called small L liberals shared.
Doesn't it look like a government that's about to be mugged by the electorate is handing over its wallet in advance?
No, what we're doing is very sensible policy. We've brought this budget back to surplus in difficult circumstances. We're investing in the productive parts of the economy through investments in education, investments in infrastructure. You see, the mining boom's only part of the story that comes from growth in Asia. There's going to be tremendous opportunities for Australia and Asia, and those opportunities in education and health and other services are going to depend upon the skills and education of our people, and that's what we're on about.
There'll be risks in Asia as well, and you are cutting $5.5 billion from defence when you promised in 2007 that there would be 3% real growth. That's 3% over and above inflation every year until 2018. So you're breaking that
promise. It is true that there has had to be restraint right across the budget, and you can go right across the budget and see where we've put that restraint in place, but we're not doing anything which in any way inhibits our troops in the field. We're making sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to get value for money out of our capital program. You've seen the announcements that have been made by the Defence Minister there. I think it's responsible what we've done. I don't believe it any way weakens our position when it comes to the defence of Australia. I simply don't share that view.
People who run defence in Australia?
Well, I don't share that view. I've been sitting now through ERCs and I've been looking through capital programs. I've got some understanding of how these things do move around normally, and they're moving around again in the case of the Joint Strike Fighter, not because of events here, but because of events elsewhere in the world.
Now, you've delayed the promised increase in overseas aid, again a promise that you committed to.
Well, there's no doubt that everybody and every part of the budget had to make some contribution, but what we're doing with aid is something I'm very proud of. It is still growing, and I think by 2015-16 we'll be the 6th biggest donor. We're doing very well on aid. Money is still increasing. It's just not increasing as quickly as it was before. Now,
your budget papers point out the fact that the $23 carbon tax, when it starts, will be a very high price when compared to the rest of the world. It will rise to $29. Is that starting price too high, and will you change it?
Well, there are particular events in Europe which have produced a lower carbon price there, but Minister Combet has recently been in Europe. The Europeans are looking at their carbon price, what they can do to put some greater rigour into it. So I think it'd be too early for us to be reaching any conclusions about moving carbon prices around.
But you are considering it?
No, I've just made the point that there's a lot of commentary out there. We are not considering moving the carbon price. That's the whole point.
So $23 is immovable. No matter what the price does in the rest of the world, you will stick with that price?
The point is that Europe is in a particular position at the moment of economic weakness, but the fact is that carbon prices in Europe have been, over a long period of time, anywhere between, say, $10 and $60.
And it will materially damage our economy if our price is much higher than it is in Europe, won't it, Treasurer?
Well, we have a fixed price for the first 3 years, so I don't accept the premise of that point.
And it will rise to $29, so it goes up from here on.
That's a long time away, Chris.
Now, I noticed that the resource rent tax is down $850 million on next year again. Have you got your sums wrong on what that's going to raise?
No, not at all. I mean, the resource rent tax, the mining rent resource tax, is impacted by the currency, it's impacted by volumes, it's impacted by price. What occurred during this particular period was that coking coal, well, coal in particular, was down a bit, and the dollar was moving around. That's all. This happens all the time. There's nothing unusual about it, and you could easily be here at the next update saying it's gone up.
Treasurer, GST receipts are down $11 billion over 4 years. That's quite a lot of money. Will we see the states trying to claw some of that back from you?
Well, our revenues are down, and so are the states' revenues. So that is just what happens when you've got a cautious consumer and all of the events I've just described.
And do you think that the states will make cuts to their budgets to try and make sure that they maintain their credit ratings?
Well, it's up to the states to be involved in pretty good housekeeping, so we'll see what they do. I don't run their budgets.
Should we see the Commonwealth and states cutting budgets at the same time?
Well, what the Commonwealth has done with the states in recent years has been very, very generous. They're about $7 billion better off a year than they were under the previous government.
Finally, Treasurer, if by consensus there's been a problem over the last 5 years in selling your economic message, is that not your fault?
Well, I'll leave that to the commentators, Chris, but the one thing I do know is we actually won the last election after we put in place...
Looked a lot like a draw.
Well, we put in place a set of policies which avoided a recession in this country. I believe that that policy approach was rewarded at the last election, and I believe good economic policy at the end of the day will win out politically, and I believe we've got the right policy for the future of the country. But if you want a more personal view about it, I mean, I do recall my predecessor who lost government at the height of a mining boom when it was raining gold bars and the economy was really growing. So they might say something about his approach to communication as well. What I'll do is keep getting the policy right.
Wayne Swan, thank you.
Thank you.